So over time on this channel, I've covered quite a few budget-friendly cinema lenses. And these are generally lenses ranging around $800 to $1,000, and most of the time they deliver good quality for their price. But the lenses I want to talk about today are on a whole other level. We're talking similar specs, build quality, and very comparable image quality to the kind of glass you'd see on big-budget Hollywood movies. We're talking cinema lenses like the Cooke S8 or the Zeiss Supreme Primes that average between $20,000 to $35,000. So when you stack that up against these lenses, which offer a very similar feature set at only 6% of the price, it's kind of wild. If you haven't figured it out yet, the lenses I'm talking about are the DZO Arles Prime. This set was sent out to me by DZO to use on a commercial I DP'd on last month, but this video is not sponsored by DZO, and they didn't even ask me to make this video. I was just really pleasantly surprised by the quality of these lenses, and even across the crew on this shoot, the reaction was super positive. The Arles lineup comes in two sets, set A and set B, which are then 10 focal lengths in total. The A set is the one I used, and it includes a 25, 35, 50, 75 and 100mm focal length, all at a very fast t1.4. If you do need some more unorthodox focal lengths, there's also the B set, which has a 14, 21, 40, 135 and 180mm. Here the extremes, so the widest and longest lenses, are a bit slower from t1.9 to t2.4. Now first things first, let's talk about some of the specs and the build quality. The Arles Primes are built like serious cinema tools. These things are a full metal construction and have that dense feel you expect from professional glass. The Arles are definitely no lightweights. We're looking at 1.5 to 1.8 kilograms depending on focal length. So if you're coming from something like the Vespid Primes or the NiSi Athenas, you're going to feel that extra weight. They have a 16 blade iris, a 95mm front diameter with an 86mm filter thread. Physically, the Arles are all matched, so they have the same length, similar width, and of course focus and iris gears in the same position. That makes them easy to swap in and out on a rig without having to reset everything. They have a generous 270-degree focus throw, which is great for pulling accurate focus. There's also a built-in thread for lens support, and they come with lens support rods in the kit. These lenses have a cinema standard PL mount, but you can easily swap them out for EF. Now, one of the standout features the Arles share with those high-end Hollywood options is that they support what's called Vista Vision sensor coverage. Basically, that means the image circle is large enough to cover sensors that are bigger than full frame. So you can use these DZO Arles on anything from Micro Four Thirds or APS-C cameras all the way up to massive $100,000 Hollywood cinema cameras. Alright, so now it's time to pixel peep a little bit. I ran this Arles set through a few tests to see how they perform. Starting with sharpness wide open at t1.4, all 5 of these lenses are usable but not at their peak sharpness. You'll see some softness in the center throughout the focal lengths, and also the corners are soft with these lenses at t1.4. But once I stop down the lenses just a bit around T2 or T2.8, they really sharpen up nicely. The center performance from there on is excellent across this entire set, and like many other cinema lenses, the corners tend to be at their max sharpness from T4 and up. So depending on what you're shooting, T1.4 is going to be usable if you're going for that more soft and dreamy look, but if you want the sweet spot for sharpness, you're best off shooting between T2.8 and T4. What really stands out though is the fall off. The Arles have this smooth gradual roll off that looks natural, and honestly I think this is a big part what makes these lenses look expensive. It's this that puts them in the league of high-end glass like Signature Primes or Supreme Primes. Now it's definitely not the same, but it's very comparable, especially in how it blends the subject into the environment rather than cutting them out. When it comes to color, the Arles lenses produce a neutral, natural-looking image, but with a slightly warm tint that I think looks great for skin tones. This warmth also gives the footage a slightly filmic vibe without feeling super baked in. When looking at these tests, all 5 focal lengths match really nicely, and there's no color shifting between them. As for distortion, it's pretty minimal across the set. The 25mm shows a bit of barrel distortion, and you'll also see this on the 35mm. The 50 and 75mm have no real visible distortion, and the 100mm has a very minimal amount of pincushion distortion. But overall, I would say that these lenses are definitely designed to look clean and natural. Also, focus breeding is very well controlled throughout the range. There's definitely a little bit of focus breeding going on all of these lenses if you are looking very closely on these tests. But I would say that it is so minimal that you would probably never notice it in real shooting scenarios. So overall, they handle breeding much better than some other lenses in this price range. Now let's talk about bokeh. When zooming into the bokeh of the 25mm, you'll see some very light onion ring texture and more defined edges in the bokeh balls. Towards the corners, the bokeh also starts to warp a little bit. The bokeh on the 35mm looks a lot cleaner with no onion ringing and less of a defined edge. The 50mm looks a bit cleaner again, with very nice round and soft bokeh balls in the center, but also warping towards the edges. The 75 and 100mm perform very similarly to the 50mm. Nice soft bokeh in the center and warping towards the edges. Now this warping is something that's not unusual with lenses designed to cover large image circles. When it comes to flaring, this Arles set hits a nice middle ground. They've got a very well controlled flare overall, but they're not boring either. There's just enough character to give your image some texture without making it messy. We did have one situation on set with the Arles where the 35mm had this weird diamond-shaped flare caused by the light back here hitting the lens. It's not the best looking, but also nothing terrible. In terms of chromatic aberration, the Arles Prime shows some longitudinal chromatic aberration throughout this set. So in these tests, you'll see that purple-green fringing before and after the point of focus. Lateral CA is also visible throughout the focal lengths, especially on the 25mm. It's less on the 35mm and the 50mm, and also the 75 and the 100mm are not too bad. So overall, the chromatic aberration on these lenses is very manageable and nothing screams out budget lens. For a single lens, the Arles Primes are priced between $2,150 and $2,750 US. You can get this A set of 5 lenses with a flight case for $9,700 US. This price puts these T1.4 Vista Vision lenses in a really interesting place between low-budget Cine lenses and high-end glass. Now there is some serious competition in this bracket though. You've got DZO's very own Vespid Primes, which are T2.1 and cost $800 per lens or $5,200 for a 7-lens kit. And of course the famous NiSi Athenas, which are T1.9, around $1,200 per lens or $6,000 for a 5-lens kit. NiSi also has the Arles Primes, which are T1.4 and cost $2,300 per lens or $10,000 for the 5-lens kit. Alright, so who are these DZO Arles lenses for? Well, if you're after fast lenses with beautiful fall off, a solid cinema housing with clean but very organic looking optics that can handle full frame coverage or more without breaking the bank, the Arles definitely deserve a serious look. For the price of renting some big budget cinema glass, you can actually own lenses that are able to produce comparable results. They may not be ideal for handheld or run and gun work given their size and weight, but for anyone working in a more traditional setup, they absolutely punch well above their weight. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them down in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!